We are Duck Hunting Fanatics, knee deep in the duck blind. If it flies, it dies. Only Duck Hunting Fanatics know what it feels like to see a brightly colored drake mallard cup its wings and soar towards your decoys. It's what we do, and it's what we love. Duck Hunting Fanatics, with boots on the ground, eyes in the skies reports. And we get it from professional duck guides all across the country. We interview them for their top tips and tricks from their years of experience from the duck hunting blind. This is Duck Hunting Fanatics, and this is Erik Wilkes.
Greetings, friends and fellow duck hunting fanatics. Erik Wilkes here with another episode of Knee Deep in the Duck Blind. And today we have a very special guest. He's been 26 years as a guide and a professional photographer. We're going to show some of you guys that are watching this his Instagram page. I can tell you for sure, you see some of his photos, you can tell he takes it very seriously, and it's almost like a whole nother level when you look at some of the photos that he has. But I want to welcome Erik Guggenheim. Thanks for being here with us, man. We appreciate you being on the show.
You bet, guys. Absolutely. Thank you guys for having me on.
Now, I know that, in your experience, you've been doing this, like you said, 26 years. So you've got to have some crazy stories. What's the most memorable story that you have that's recent? And then I always ask, like, what's your most memorable story as a kid too, growing up hunting over the last 26 years?
Man, that's a very interesting one, because I've been on so many. It's hard to say when people hear the numbers and the volume I've hunted, it almost, even to myself, it doesn't even seem possible, because one, I'm 46 and I feel like I'm only 25, but then I'm like, wow, that's, when you're talking about 150 plus days a year, sometimes 200 days a year hunting, it's like that ends up being thousands of days. And for, you take an average of 10, 15 guys a day, that's tens of thousands of hunters. I'm like, how in the world is that even possible? So, especially for a 29-year-old guy. But, in that time, I wouldn't say that I've seen it all, but I've seen a lot. And one thing I have definitely said, there are some stories that stick out. Probably the crazy stories. I've taken a blind guy goose hunting, which was a pretty memorable hunt I'll never forget. And then also, it's one of the most sombering moments I've had is I've taken a guy hunting right before he died, and his last thing he wanted to do was go goose hunting right before he died. So you talk about a really hard set of expectations, like, hey, let's have you on a hunt. Oh, by the way, I'm dying in about 2 weeks. I just wanted to see one more flight. You're like, oh God, they better land today.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, that's a little pressure, and you want them to have a good experience, especially when they're on their way out. But wow, I'm hoping that did they fly good that day?
Ma'am, I can tell you this, I don't remember, because after we're done hunting, he goes, I don't even know. He goes, I'm not sure how many we shot, don't even care. And he didn't. He said, I need to get back to my hotel. I'm not feeling very well. And all I thought was, wow, all the pressure, all the buildup I did to try to make this hunt good, he really didn't care. And that really set a tone for me. This was years ago, that he had more fun us cutting up, telling jokes in the blind. The killing it wasn't even about the killing at all. And a lot of people say that cliche like, but I really got to experience it with the person. And then I think he's right. I've never been in that position where I'm dying, but I think at that moment, it really lets you know that the results aren't why you're here, or if it is, you're probably not fully enjoying it.
Yeah, and it sounds like he just wanted to get out, and that's awesome. I mean, and it sounds like, obviously he accepted that his impending death was coming, and fortunately, he was able to get out, and it kind of enabled you to just be a part of his journey, which I think is pretty neat. And you gave him a good experience, and I think that's what a lot of guys, as hunters, we know it's not just about killing. It's the experience, it's getting out, and it's being in the field. And I'm sure for him, it brought back a lot of really cool memories too. So it's really awesome that you're able to just be a part of that and help him experience the outdoors one last time before he, went on to the next world.
Yeah, absolutely. Those and I've got just dozens of those stories like that, for everything from, I call it people's first goose to their last goose. And that's just, for me, that was why I was put on this earth. I mean, I've been a guide forever. It's what, even before I was doing it professionally, I was doing it, with friends and family. It's all I really know. And,
Mhm.
it's, I don't know. I think you're either born that way or you're not. And I was having a conversation with one of my good buddies today, Spencer Tarkington over there in Quacksmackers in Arkansas. And we're, talking about interviewing new guides. And a lot of people, because I know so many folks in this industry, are always looking for guides. Because the one thing that I've done, I'd say, when you get to my age, you get to the end of your career at some point, that's kind of where I'm at. I'm no longer out there shooting birds every day. I've spent the last probably 10 years training guides, and gotten to be a part of the best guide services in the world. But I spent those years training guides how to guide, and now I'm at that place where that's kind of where I like to be. And I've kind of synthesized that backwards to, there's guys who know how to hunt and there's guys who know how to guide. They're two different. They're not the same thing. And I think that's something that really probably has been talked about a lot. But I think it's something you're born with. I think either you're born as a servant attitude guide or you're not. Because good hunts are good hunts. I mean, that's, anybody can do that. But a lot of people ask me to define that for them. What's a guide? And that's an interesting topic. If you want to go into that.
Yeah, I mean, and I think, what I pulled out of that, the servant and attitude in a guide, because, a lot of us, especially, we've all gotten so career focused. Now, the pandemic kind of changed all that with the dawn of the work from home era, and a lot of guys getting back to their roots, and, they're selling more licenses now than ever before because people now have the time. And I think one of the reasons we look to hire a guide, at least from in my own personal experience, we've all got, busy lives, and sometimes time is of the essence. So we don't necessarily have the time to go do all the scouting and have time to get out and hunt. So rather than that, we invest in hiring a guide, and you really do want to have a pleasant experience. So, I mean, let's dive into it. I mean, we can take this conversation wherever you want to go, or there's no set agenda here. Let's talk about that for a second. Let's, for guys that are maybe looking to become a guide, and I know we've tossed this idea around of, how can we all get paid to do what we love, and how can we get paid to go duck hunting and get paid to go, deer hunting or whatever type of hunting it is, right?
Yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second, because I do think there are some unique opportunities in the space at present, because every guide that I know, I was just talking to one down in Arkansas, one of my buddies, and he is literally booked up through 2022, and he is taking bookings, excuse me, already for the fall of 2023. So if that gives you any indication as to like how quickly people are booking up. So I do think there are some lucrative opportunities in the guiding space. What would you say to someone that's maybe considering it? And then again, I'll just kind of steer the conversation and we'll see where it goes from here. But
Yeah.
I
So
just want to get your thoughts.
Sure. And I've got a lot of different takes on this. So, getting into the guide business is hard. It's, I assimilate it to being a musician or a rock star. I mean, my cousin Toby Brolin at Cadillac Creek, and I did a great podcast about this. That how do we both have got really successful guide services and started off from nothing. Well, that's really no different than any other job out there. If you want it bad enough, you got to go do it. And I get calls, emails, texts, PMs, DMs, whatever it is, all the time. Guys saying, "Hey, I want a guide. I want this." I'm like, first off, if you really want to do it, I mean, you got to be willing to sell it out. And I say sell it out. I mean, when I started guiding, my folks did not support it. They supported me guiding, but let me go to college. And they took away my truck, so I hitchhiked to New Mexico and slept in a tent for a better quarter of about 4 months on river guiding, because that's all I want to do. I couldn't afford anything, so I did it. And I slept in the back of my truck for almost a whole season, and living on breadcrumbs. But I wanted a guide. Every day I'd go into this little bar, and we didn't have digital cameras back then because this is the mid to early 90s. And I'd have those little point and shoot cameras, and I'd go to Walmart and have them develop it. And I'd be showing guys, because back those, they had little dates on the bottom of them. Hey, look, I caught this today. You're going to go with me tomorrow. And just hustled until I could get folks to go with me. And also getting my guide license, things like that. But you got to want it. Just like a musician, you're going to have to play all those crappy bars. You're going to have to play all those things. And it's too easy for guys to get on the internet and get a social media page, go hunt with a bunch of buddies, and start posting pictures and making content, TikToks, and say I'm a guide. That's not a guide. Taking 5 groups a year is not guiding. Guiding is whenever that is all you do. That's your livelihood. That's how you guide. And I know a lot of guys who, I do this part of the year. I do that. Well, you're not. You might be kind of you're guiding, but the guys who work 9 months out of the year, 8 months of the year, those are the guys to me who are truly making a living as a guide. But to get started in that, the best thing you can do is just like any other job, you go anywhere you can to get picked up. I mean, I've worked with some really crappy guide services and fly shops and all kinds of stuff getting started. That guys, wasn't getting paid anything. Was getting my butt kicked all the time by other guys in the totem pole. But you just have to do it. You scrub boats, you scrub trucks, whatever it takes to get that first shot. And that's, I think I don't see a lot of guys doing that. I think a lot of guys want to start a guide service, not learn how to guide.
Yeah, agreed. And it's really anymore. You're right. I mean, it's 8, 9, sometimes even more, 10, 11 months out of the year, except for when it's just the bitter cold and the season's starting to wind down. You take a month or 2 or 3 off, but it really it's darn near full-time deal year round now, prepping fields and doing all the field work. And especially for the guys that are hunting over rice fields, you're getting the rice fields ready, and there's all sorts of stuff. You're moving blinds around, you're scouting for the following year, and then again, right up through the season. So there's a lot of work that really does go into it. And sometimes, those days, several guides like you do, and I know there's days can get pretty long, especially during the season, because guys are in and out. And again, you're part of your job, you're an entertainer too, right? You got to entertain people, and you got to relate to people, and you got to make sure that they're, having a good experience. So, what advice would you give someone? What would be your best tip? I know working hard, getting into it, but whether it's personally, professionally, what advice would you give someone that's trying to get into it?
The biggest advice is go find somebody. And I've talked about this a lot on the photography side, and I also talk a lot about it on the guiding side. You need to go find somebody, a group that you can relate to, that you admire, that you look up to, and figure out how to become more like those successful folks. If you look at any great anything in this world, there's somebody they looked up to. And I don't care if you're an astrophysicist, you looked up to Einstein. I don't care if you're a musician, you looked up to Steve Ray Vaughan, Goose Guide, whatever. And I think finding someone that you can relate to and study them, figure everything else there is to know about those people, get a part of them. And the cool thing about the internet now and social media is you can reach out and talk to people, and everybody's just people, and they'll reach back. And guys who are truly passionate about this sport, guys like my buddy Forrest Carpenters and Kyle Jones and other guys, we'll talk to you. We'll tell you exactly what we did, and we'll tell you what not to do, and figure out what makes those guys different, what makes them great. Figure out what makes them, what sets them apart. And that's something I think that a lot of people really need to do, is be willing to pay your dues to figure out what makes the great ones great.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Especially if you're trying to get paid to do this, and we get a lot of response. It seems like we've posted before just a survey, like how many guys would like to get paid to duck hunt, and the responses every time we do something like that are almost overwhelming. And here it is right here. You're kind of giving a bit of a framework on how to go do that. So I know that this will go over well with our followers, and I don't want to spend too much time on going into the weeds with it, right? Because we could really get nitty gritty detail on it. And, but I kind of want to shift gears a little bit over into the photography side of it, because I know we have some people that are really good photographers and guys that like to get into that. Let's just talk about your photography, because again, I'm just going based off of your Instagram page, man. You've got some really great photos, and the way you set them up, and you're actually in a lot of them too. So I don't know if you're doing the framework and setting that all up and then having someone else push the button, or how that's working.
Yeah, most of my professional stuff, don't scroll down in the past, because the past year I didn't post as much stuff. So most of the work that I do is for catalogs. I mean, I guess you could say, you name it, I've gotten to be blessed and fortunate to make a living shooting waterfowl photography for some of the biggest names out there, whether it's Sitka, Tangle Free, Bass Pro Shops, Max. I mean, this is on and on of different groups I've shot photography for, I still do, and which I don't publish a whole lot of. I'm kind of gotten blessed to be at the point where I don't have to advertise my stuff. I used to have a website, but after having well over a couple hundred images ripped off, and I don't know how many have been used commercially. I've seen my images all over. My clients I have a private Dropboxes and stuff for my clients, but the photography world really is that's always been my passion and been my main thing. But it's like everything else for me. Photography was it was really more about guiding, because one of the things I loved about guiding so much is I would see stuff that happened in the field. I see something happen in the blind, or an emotion of, instead of birds doing it, and be like, man, you guys should have seen that. And so I was like, I wish I could take pictures of that. And then one thing led to another. And I mean, I'm there, I'm at ground zero. Why not take photos and write a story? So I started doing that. I started taking photos, and I ended up creating a style of photography that hadn't been done before. And the thing about it is, all my work, I'm close. Like that photo there, those pintails, I didn't shoot that with a 500 millimeter lens. I shot that with a 70 to 200 at 70. That bird was about 15, 20 yards in front of me, maybe 15 yards.
Wow.
All the stuff I shoot is stuff that guys who hunt see. And so all my sponsors and my clients, customers of photography, there was something for them to see. One of the things that really got me going was working for decoy companies, saying, hey, anybody can take a picture of decoys in the field. Let me take pictures of birds doing it in your decoys to prove the story you're trying to tell.
Yeah, and that's really awesome. I mean, you have so many just cool snapshots and cool photos that you guys.
Like that picture on your left, those two specklebellies. I mean, that's probably my claim to fame. Is I've shot hundreds of birds as all banded birds. Like those, that's a set of banded birds. Those are on hunts. I don't shoot on refuges. I only shoot live hunts. So I just see bands.
Yeah, right. That's awesome. And yeah, what an opportunity to just, be out there, and then, like you said, capture the moment. And I'm sure that goes a long way with your clients too, that you're guiding, just to capture some of those moments while you're out there. And like you said, you're really just making it a part of the experience and helping it become that much more, I feel like, memorable for them. Because I know we all look back and say, I wish we would have taken more photos, but there's also the argument that if you're the one there to have the experience and you spend all your time trying to capture photos, then you miss half the experience. So, and I speak for myself, but I'm like the worst picture taker there is, because I really am just no matter what I'm doing, whether I'm with family on a vacation or I'm out hunting, whatever it might be, I'm terrible at taking photos. But, I do it on purpose, because I'm making that conscious choice to not spend time taking those photos. But if I had someone there that could take them and allow my family and I, or myself, to just enjoy that experience, that makes it all the more memorable, because now you have something to go recap that and relive it, at a later date, where you didn't take away from the actual time you're investing while you're there to have the actual experience. Does that make sense? Or am I kind of rambling a little bit here?
Well, it does make sense, except for the one, when I have my camera out, my camera is my experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't have to think. I don't really think about it.
Yeah, you're a little bit different too, right? There's different ways to look at it, right? Your camera is your experience. You live for it. I was speaking more in terms of like, someone that's there on a hunt with you, and you're there as a guide, and you're there as a professional photographer. It's a little bit different angle, which is very unique, right? Because now you're helping, yourself enjoy the experience more. That's part of what you're there for, but you're also helping your clients create memories, and then you're shooting shots and images that will help them relive that experience to make it all the better.
Yeah, and for me, with extreme ADD, it gives me something to do with my hands while I'm sitting there.
Yeah, and I think we all, to a degree, have some of that. But as you guys can see, as I click through some of these photos, I mean, some of these are just like awesome shots, and I think a lot of it too is like
really cool.
Yeah, but you clearly have an eye for timing.
No, you're actually you're absolutely right. That when I started out in photography, I got trained by two of, I'd say, some of the best photographers out there. Not because they're the best teachers out there. A guy named Wyman Minzer is the Texas State photographer. But what made Wyman such a great mentor is, one, because we're neighbors in the little town I lived in, and two, Wyman's a trapper and a hunter. And so, what made Wyman such a great photographer, becoming one of the greatest photographers in the world, was timing. He said, us being hunters versus photographers, I know exactly when to push the trigger. And when I push the trigger, if you're a photographer, you may not know what's about to happen. But as you know, when birds are coming in, about to do it, you're like, okay, if I wait 2 more seconds, I know that mallard's going to backpedal. Well, when he backpedals, I'm going to be ready, as opposed to saying, okay, I'm going to take pictures and see what comes out. So having that timing perspective, but that's also being a guide. The greatest guides in the world are good shot callers. If you're a good shot caller, your numbers will show. And that's where I'd say the hardest thing to do, whether you're a guide or just the guy on the hunt, you learn to, if you can master when to call a shot, that's everything.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes sense. And, I think it's just, again, it's timing is everything. And just looking at some of these photos, these action shots, especially that you have, and again, it's just amazing to me. Something that I feel like I'd love to have an eye for, but man, I'd rather, I think at this point, still be the guy behind the trigger, shooting the gun.
Absolutely.
But I could see how going with you and again, making that experience all the better, where a guy that's coming out shooting and you're catching some action shots, my goodness, what's better than that to be able to come back and relive the experience later. So
yeah,
really
honestly,
cool.
It got to that place where I really don't care about shooting anymore. I mean, it really doesn't do anything for me. I've shot enough to last 3 lifetimes now. I really just have to take my camera and live that moment. 20 years ago, I thought you were crazy. I'm like, that's what those old timers say. Now I'm like, I really don't mind. I want to gear up. I want to get all the stuff. I want to be there. But when it comes time to pull the trigger, and don't worry, my gun's loaded at all times. That's not, but it's one of those, like, given the opportunity to take a photograph or shoot it, I'm probably going to take a photograph. And that's when I recognized that I'd made the shift.
Well, keep doing what you're doing, man, and keep training these younger guides and these younger guys that are coming up. I mean, they're our future, and the future to our sport, and the future to helping some of the guys who don't necessarily have the time to get out, or maybe guys that just want to go experience something new in some other area or some other part of the country and have an opportunity at different ducks than what they're normally used to.
Absolutely.
Those guys are our future. They are our future. So I want to thank you for that. Anything else that, as we kind of wrap up here, anything else that you want to add in, any other advice, tips, anything else in terms of photography or guiding?
Yeah. Right now, I think it's extremely important that people learn to be honest. And when I say honest, social media makes it so easy for guys to be something they're not. And, as guys are wanting to get better at the sport, I think it's real important that everybody kind of take a step back and look at humility for a little bit and be like, hey, don't be afraid to say that you don't know everything. And every day of your life, you don't smash birds. I mean, like, if you're looking for a guide service, never go to a guide service that says they shoot limits every day.
Yeah.
Never go to a guide service that tells you how great they are. Things like that. But in order to do that, someone had to put the content up there. Don't be that guy.
Yeah, just
you're going to have good days. You're going to have bad days.
And we've all had crazy experiences and been there and done that as well. And especially for those of you guys that are just kind of maybe getting into hunting and thinking about doing a guide, some of those pitfalls to watch out for. Look for the guys that are honest. Look for the guys that'll tell you, yeah, we might shoot some ducks today. We might not shoot any tomorrow. It really depends on the weather, depends on hunting pressure. I mean, there's so many factors that goes into it. So definitely, I think Honesty, the other word that comes to mind there that goes right alongside that is transparency. Look for the guys that are being totally honest and transparent and not trying to fill you up for the sake of collecting your money and booking you on a hunt, because the reality is it's still hunting no matter where you go,
no matter where you go,
it's still hunting. And there's a reason they call it hunting and not killing. So that's actually a really good tip.
Yeah, I think it's just important. And to the guides, like, what I tell a lot of our young guys who work for us is, can you get tipped when you blank? If you feel confident that clients are going to tip you when you didn't fire a shot, now you're getting it. Because and I've had that happen. I've had some great tips and we didn't even fire a cap. I tried everything but flying, and they could tell that I tried everything. Just something happened. I mean, something out of my control happened. You can't help crop dusting the field next to you that should have been sprayed. You can't. There's certain things you can't. But when you try everything there is, and clients like, man, you're funny. You're trying it all. We can see you're getting your butt whipped by the minute. I mean, gosh, we appreciate you giving it your all, and telling them, hey, look, guys, I may not be the best, but I'm going to give you my best, and that goes a long way.
That's awesome. That'll go a long way with just us as a hunting party or as hunters. That really does go a long way. So we do appreciate that. One last question: do you have any openings for hunts left this year? And how do guys get in touch with you if they're looking to maybe book a hunt and go have some fun with you?
Sure. If you're if you want to hunt Texas, come to Ranger Creek Goose. If you want to hunt Amarillo, come up to Cadillac Creek. And if you want to come to hunt with us in Arkansas, go to Quack Smackers. I'll be at all three of those this year. And then if you want to go up to Kansas with Grant and I and have the time of your life, come up to see us up at Magnum Outfitters, and that's also a blast. So I'll be between Magnum at Kansas, Ranger Creek and Haskell, Cadillac Creek and Amarillo, and Quack Smackers and Stuttgart. I will be at one of those, and most of those are booked, but if you really want a date, give me a call and see what I can do. I'd be happy to get you guys in.
Awesome, man. And for those of you that are listening, don't worry. I know he threw those out kind of fast. We'll make sure we post all of those locations in the descriptions of this podcast. So you guys got all the links so you can get out and get in touch with Erik. We'll also post a link to his Facebook and his Instagram, so you guys know how to find him and how to get in touch with them. So you can reach out to him via social as well, if that's easier for you. So, definitely, I would advise, for those of you that are looking to maybe book a hunt and you haven't thought about it yet, as you heard me say earlier, most of the guides that we work with here at Duck Hunting Fanatics, I mean, they're all booked up, through most of 2022, if not all of 2022. A lot of them are already booking in 2023. So, if you're on the fence, reach out to Erik for sure. He'll make, obviously you guys see some of the photos and some of the stuff he's doing, and you heard this conversation here. So, he'll make sure you guys have a good experience and have something that's going to be memorable and have fun. Remember, he said, get tipped when you fire blanks. So even if you fire blanks, he's going to make your experience good enough that you guys feel like getting a tip. So giving a tip. So Erik, man, I certainly sincerely appreciate your time. We're definitely going to have you, if you're cool with it, we're going to have you on another episode as well.
Yeah.
We'll try to get something, if you're open to it, we'll get something going as we get closer to the season, just to talk migration patterns for the DIY guys. A lot of those guys tune in, and we'll just try to give general kind of migration reports and what we're seeing, and giving guys some tips during the season. So again,
I'd love to do it. Absolutely love to do it. As much as I love to guide, I also love chasing them on public. So let me know, and I'll be happy to give every tip that I know, buddy.
All right, man. Well, thank you so much. And I want to thank our listeners for tuning in to another episode of Knee Deep in the Duck Blind. Without you guys, we wouldn't be able to continue doing these shows. So we certainly do thank you guys. And we look forward to seeing you on another episode. We'll talk to y'all soon. Everybody have a great day.
We are Duck Hunting Fanatics. Knee deep in the duck blind. If it flies, it dies.